I first want to say thank you so much to Mohammed and Abdul for making this opportunity happen to have such a great dynamic speaker. And I'm so excited to hear his story and allow him to share, the ambassador to share his story with you today. But just want to kind of say that just as an abundance of professional public service experience that I've had and community engagement ties to West Africa, it's just such an honor to be able to present to you today our guest speaker, the Ambassador of Sierra Leone to the United States, Sidique Abou-Bakarr Wai. As just to tap on some key points in his bio, which I think is really important, he's also the ambassador and accredited to 8 additional countries: Bahamas, Bolivia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Guyana, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. So I know there are many people in the room that have either traveled or worked in those countries. The ambassador is also the Secretary General of ECOWAS, which is made up of 15 African countries. And for over 20 years, Ambassador Wai has created a legacy of service with a high-profile career in the United States, primarily in New York City, with focal areas of diplomacy, public safety, public healthcare advocacy, community relations, and social empowerment. Of course, the ambassador has a long list of notable achievements, but just one to mention for today is he institutionalized the police body camera program in New York City Police Department, which was empowering for not only New York City, but across the country. So in Ambassador Wai's own words to me earlier this week, he made a comment that said, God has a way of connecting people. And today we will all learn why. So please join me in welcoming and celebrating Ambassador Wai to the podium.
Let me start by saying good afternoon and thank you for this kind and humble invitation extended to a country boy who came to this country with $5 in his pocket, was a doorman at 50 West 96th Street, went to NYU, went to Fordham, and was a taxi driver at some point, worked for the best police department in the world as a policy advisor. And today, I'm standing here as a product of American generosity. So I really think you should all give your hands, put your hands together for this country giving us as immigrants to be part of this country. So give yourself a round of applause. I also want to thank perhaps one of the most distinguished African female professionals that I have got to learn, respect, and admire. And when I came here as a newbie, as we call it in Harlem, he just came as an ambassador. I was an activist. I didn't know anything about diplomacy, but I knew one thing: people-to-people relations. And I think that is symbolic of what the Rotary has done. I'm going to share a story with you today that is going to be a story. You're going to be shocked to finding out that what you do in this room, in your own quiet time, in your own humble way, has affected lives that you could never even imagine. So I will save that. My colleagues always like to script me, and my sister, Mariama, said, "You're talking to the Rotary Club, and you can't come here and just ad-lib." So Cozy and Abdul, and then she also recruited her husband to be part of this gang to script me so I don't go off tangent. So please forgive me. Well, let me start by saying to the leaders of this organization, both past and present, thank you. And thank you, Madam Past President, and thank you, Mr. Treasurer, and thank each and every one of you who make it your business to care for people that you have never met and seen. I feel honored to be invited here today in my role as the Republic of Sierra Leone's ambassador to the United States of America, as well as the countries my sister mentioned. Sierra Leone is a country of 7.5 million people. And it is poised to be an example and a beacon for Africa. Rich in natural resources, with a lush of green mountains running down to some of the world's most beautiful beaches. Sierra Leone's beauty also falls against the backdrop of conflict. Then came Ebola, then the mudslides, and then the Big C. Many of you are probably not aware of how much the Rotary Club contributed to Sierra Leone during the brutal civil war period from 1991 to 2002. As God has it, God has a way of connecting people. And I have such a meaningful story to share on the history behind my initial connection and introduction to the Rotary Club. I was in New York City, where I lived for most of my adult life. I was then at the time working for New York City government and the New York City Public Housing Authority, perhaps the largest public housing in this country. If you are comparing public housing, it would be like a fifth state. I held the position of the director of senior services. At the time, New York City had 96,000 seniors in public housing. And I held leadership positions in the sphere of diplomacy, public safety, public health, community relations, and social activism. I was the first African to mobilize Africans to protest against the police department. And those of you who heard about Amadou Diallo, the African immigrant that was shot 41 times, I was that poster boy that brought peace and tranquility to New York City because I said one thing, and that was, people were ready to burn down New York City. Activists were mad and crazy. Then the mayor then invited me to City Hall because I was the president and national spokesperson for all Africans born in Africa in the United States. And he came to me and said, "We are sorry for what happened, and I need you to convey my apologies and sincere." This is Giuliani now. The fact that I went to City Hall at the invitation of the mayor, and after I left that meeting, there was a throng of almost 500 reporters, and they said, "Mr. Wai, what did you discuss with the mayor?" I said, "It was a private matter. You know, he was telling me about what happened." Said, "You guys don't bother me." They said, "Oh, no. Today, we don't say any other day, but today, you are the most influential African in the whole of the United States." Yeah, he's a little country boy. How could I be the most influential African? He says the reason is simple. This Amadou Diallo tragedy is the biggest tragedy in the history of the United States. And who is the mayor meeting with? You. So that translates into, so you got to talk to us. They couldn't let me leave. So then I said, in our tradition, when something of this tragedy occurs, as a man of faith, we leave it to the hands of God. It is God's will. I live in the city. There are over 400,000 continental African immigrants who are always being threatened with green cards, blue cards, or no cards. If I mobilize these people to go out there and protest, guess what? Some of them are going to be deported. So what we need to do, I live in this city. This city has been good to all of us. What I'm asking the people to do is for us to work together to prevent this from ever happening again. That was my crime. The activists came out in large numbers. He's an Uncle Tom, he's this, he's that. Well, guess what? That statement made people of goodwill to understand that we are all in this together. And that's how New York City wasn't burnt down. I can't take credit for it. I give it to the Almighty God. But I think I had a little bit of things to do to say to people to calm them down. So, as also the president and national spokesperson, which was a Pan-African umbrella organization representing the interests of Africans in this country, we also had an obligation and responsibility to say to my brothers and sisters, yes, you came from somewhere, but you work here, you live here. You got to be part of the system. If something happens in Harlem or Bed-Stuy, it's not those people, it's all of us. So that began my life in activism, organizing protests for welfare mothers. And then came the tragedy, which was my own personal tragedy, the civil war in Sierra Leone. This became the most horrific, where they were raping, maiming, cutting limbs of innocent civilians, adults and children alike. And that gained the world attention. For those of you who know, you heard the name Blood Diamond. That's the origin of it. But there was one organization called, join me, help me say this. What was the name of that organization? Rotary. A Rotary Club. The Rotary Club in Staten Island, New York, that was the first organization in the history of this country to extend an invitation to me, a Sierra Leonean, to ask me a simple question. How can the Rotary Club be helpful? They didn't say, where did you come from? They say, how can we be helpful? My brother was a medical doctor. He was kidnapped for 6 years by the rebels. His job was to help people who were maimed. That was his job. So when they finished with him, they didn't need him anymore. We advocated to the Red Cross. They dumped him in the middle of a highway, and that's how my brother was saved. When my brother left Even today, he wouldn't speak about that. So the first set of young Sierra Leonean kids, limbs that were cut off, there was the Rotary Club that mobilized, identified doctors to assist, to provide them with prosthetics. And some of these kids were later provided homes to live in. For many of the Sierra Leonean refugees, it was the Rotary Club that provided support. And I had no idea that today I am going to be sharing with you where it all began. In my role as Sierra Leone's ambassador, because it has been said, I want to say thank you, and from the bottom of my heart, from my country, to say thank you, Rotary Club, for coming to our country's aid when practically no one was around. Give yourself a big round of applause for that. So that generosity and that rearing and that support that I have gotten to this from this country, that training, going to school here, having children here, having friends here, made it possible for my colleagues in the Economic Commission of West African States, 15 ambassadors from 15 countries, to say, we're electing you as the Secretary General of the ECOWAS Ambassadors Group in the United States. So I'm in charge of 15 African ambassadors. In addition to that, I'm also the co-chair for public affairs and diaspora engagement for the 54 African ambassadors accredited to the United States. So I'm going to tell them, if you are in this country and you did not visit the Rotary Club, then you did not come to America yet. So, what the Rotary has done for my country, I will never forget. And just this invitation today is another milestone. And another important point in my capacity as a former head of the African diaspora in the US, I want to give you some figures. There are, in this country, a minimum of 8.3 million first-generation Africans right here in the United States. Let me repeat that number. 8.3 million Africans born in Africa now reside in this country. You see, she's part of it. And all those guys, they are part of it too. Why am I saying that? Africans are in every part of the 50 states, including Alaska. They're there. And some of these people are contributing tremendously to this country. They are doctors, they are lawyers, they are professors. What she did not tell you, she's a public policy expert. When some of us get lost in this town, who holds our hands is Mariama. I would have never known that this Rotary Club organization is among the oldest Rotary. How did I know? I have my advisor. So there is no ambassador that gets appointed to the US by chance. It is a deliberate and a carefully well thought out process by the leaders of our country. These are the people their president trusts and listens to. When you are appointed here as ambassador to the United States, whether anybody wants to accept it or not, I've lived here for over 30 years. This is the be all and the end all. Not Australia, not China. I don't even know how to spell it, but I have a Chinese name. Or not Russia. This country. I want to send this message to all of you today that the immigrants that come here appreciate you. And they thank you for what you do. Because if you did not give us an opportunity to work on the fields, in the kitchens, driving taxis on the streets, we will not be able to support our countries back home. So if there is a Rotary Club in Sierra Leone, I would like to be more engaged because Sierra Leone is a recipient of your contributions that have transformed lives. Now, my people said I have to say this. Kozi and Abdullah and Mariama, they're telling me I'm starting, I've been too long now, so I better get out of here quickly. Now, there is a call to action because as activists, those of us in the movement, you don't come given the opportunity to speak in front of important people. Some of you, I know this, the background. You're retired executives. You have been corporate, you have served this country with excellence and distinction. And what you form this organization for is to give back. I heard about the grants that the president was talking about. Oh boy, when I go back, I'm going to spread the word because there are plenty of people who will want to apply for that grant. Now, if possible, by all means, with His Excellency, my president, Dr. Julius Maada Bio, will be arriving in Washington during the US-Africa Summit on December 13th to the 15th. We would like to find a way, if not now, or sometimes in the future, that we get a forum for the president to come here and at some point to say thank you for what you did for his country at the ugliest time in our history. I think the president would like that. And I will leave that to the distinguished advisor. She is the one that makes things happen. And also, I always say this, but people take it as, if you are only as good a leader when you have better people working for you. And let me take this opportunity to introduce you to those better people. Mr. Mohamed Kosia, please stand. He is a presidential appointee for investment and trade for the Republic of Sierra Leone to all the countries that we are accredited to. So anybody, because I know he's going to be taking so many cards here, but he doesn't need too many cards because he got the 911 right there. And we, for the first time in the history of Sierra Leone, we have a political and congressional liaison. This guy was a Rhodes Scholar. He worked on Congress, and whenever we call him the 911 to the congressional delegation, my colleague Abdul Densi. And the person that makes Mariama does what she does, Mr. Keïta, please stand, the honorable gentleman. Sarah. Well, in conclusion, I think I've overstayed because they are all looking at me. What I'm truly grateful for is having the opportunity to serve my country and activate what I call the people's diplomacy. And Sierra Leone has specifically benefited from the Rotary Club. I want to take this opportunity, Madam President, Executive Committee, and all the members in this room, those watching, to say thank you and thank you. I yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Would you mind? I don't know if this is on or not. Would you mind taking a few questions?
I don't mind, Madam President.
Thank you. And we should recognize what immigrants have contributed to our country. So thank you.
If you would like to ask a question in the room, please raise your hand. I see Past President David Klaus. If you are online and you'd like to ask a question, use the hand raise function on Zoom and we will call on you in due time. Past President David.
Obviously, first of all, thank you so much for coming today and for your comments, which were most appreciated. You went from being a major player in the United States to ambassador. And I'm wondering what the procedure is. Obviously, the president must have nominated you, knew you and thought you would be good, as you obviously are. Is there anything else involved? In our country, ambassadors have to be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate.
Thank you. Can I take that question? I think that's a very, very
Please.
important question. And this really goes to the character of my president. When I was appointed, I never met the president in my life. Never. What the president knew, he said when he was making this choice, there are always about 50 candidates, people flew to Sierra Leone to want to be appointed. Well, he said, I am going to appoint somebody who does not need the map of United States or Harlem, and who understands the system and who has friends to elevate our country. So when you're appointed ambassador, and I say this openly and kindly, if you don't have friends, relationships with people who could help you move that agenda forward, you only came for a visit. The relationships, they matter. Your ability to be articulate, your ability to lift your country and tell the world about your country and letting them know the opportunities that exist here. Let me say this, you are all corporate executives. Sierra Leone is open for business. So there are some traditional appointees as ambassadors, it's the politicians. I was never a politician. I didn't run for anything other than I ran for the Office of Public Advocate in the city of New York. But I always said, I'm not even running for the bathroom. I'm only running to serve the best president I know in my country, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada Bio.
I see another question from past President Bill Dent.
It's wonderful to have you here today, and that personal testimony is amazing. I just want to follow up on the fact that Sierra Leone is open for business. I've worked for 2 economic development banks, as a few other colleagues here. How are you going about that? How do you get the word out that Sierra Leone is open for business? What kind of partners are you looking for, and how do you reach out to them?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. I'm sure Mr. Mohamed Kousia is taking notes. How we have tried to get this word out to the business community is through personal relationships, personal contacts. I get hundreds of people come into my office with all kinds of proposals. We want gold, we want to mine gold, we want to mine diamonds, we have gold, bauxite, all of the, it's the extractive industry that people look up to. But let me tell you, I have been to my country. In fact, I go to my country almost every 3 or 4 months. Those of you who have businesses or you're looking for places to invest, I'm not saying this because I'm the ambassador or I'm from Sierra Leone, but I'm telling you, Sierra Leone is one of, if you went and invested in Sierra Leone with several $1 million, I guarantee you, it's not only in the extractive industry, there's agriculture, there's healthcare. Everything that we get in Sierra Leone, people bring it from outside. Even in the food industry, clothing. If you took jeans, American jeans, they are in demand. Anything American is in demand. So, Mr. Past President, Sierra Leone has also created an international standard regulatory framework. Because if somebody is going to invest their money into a country, they want to get returns on their investment. We are part of the New York Convention. For those of you who are business people, New York Convention means we can arbitrate. Your investment is safe. You have Sierra Leone Mariama mines. You have there are over 40 American companies operating in Sierra Leone. There is the area of infrastructure, the roads, the bridges. We have the Atlantic coast, the coastline, incredible. If someone is ready to put a hotel in Sierra Leone, I'm ready to work with you to make that happen. Sierra Leone is the only country that I know that you need 3 means of transportation. You fly, you take a boat, and then you drive. Air, land, and sea. We have a 6-mile Atlantic when you get to Lungi. We have been looking for years, before some of us were born. People were looking for people who want to invest in something like that. When you invest in Sierra Leone, you are not investing in a 7.5 million people. There is the Mano River Union, which includes Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea, and Ivory Coast. That's almost 50 million people. It's big industry. And that industry, what we did, and I'm going to pitch this here, we put together for the first time in the history of any ambassador in this country, a regional integration plan for a railway transportation initiative that connects those 4 countries to encourage international regional trade, and most importantly, to attract our American investors. If anybody wants to know any railway, any engineers that are interested, serious investors, our country is able, willing, and ready. Mr. Kos, excuse me, and Mr. Abdul, and of course, our 911, if you're ready, just let her know. Even if we don't have a car, we will jog, we will go, we will swim to go meet that person and talk to them.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I could listen to you all afternoon, but unfortunately.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you.
We would like to present you with an honorary membership in our club, in the Rotary Club.
Oh.
This is a certificate
Oh.
to commemorate that and a Rotary pin.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
We also, for each of our speakers, we plant a tree in your honor.
Oh.
And nowadays, we're even modern. We have GPS coordinates for your trees. So
Wow.
we'll be able to give that.
Okay.
Share with everybody. We'll be able to give that. This is a
Thank you.
certificate.
Wow. Thank you so much, Madam
Well,
President.
thank you.